I never believed in gut feelings, until the night I ignored mine. I met Ava through my older sister, Molly. They used to work at the same animal rescue center in Hartford Ridge, a small town tucked between two slow rivers and surrounded by pine forest. The kind of place where neighbors wave at each other from porches and everyone remembers who you were in high school. I had just moved back after 3 years in Chicago. City life had worn me thin. I missed clean air, slower days, and the smell of wet bark after it rained. Ava was gorgeous in that quiet, magnetic way. She wasn't loud or flashy. In fact, most people didn't notice her right away. But once you did, it was impossible to look away. She had deep hazel eyes, almost gold in sunlight, and a voice so soft you had to lean in when she spoke. That wasn't a trick. She just wasn't interested in wasting words. Our first real conversation happened in Molly's kitchen. She was helping with a stray tabby that had sliced its paw on broken glass. Ava was cradling it in a towel, whispering gently while Molly cleaned the wound. I offered her tea. She looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "Only if it's black. Everything else tastes like regret." We started dating a week later. The first month was easy, almost too easy. We went for long walks near the reservoir trail. She showed me her favorite overlook, where the trees thinned just enough to catch the orange-pink smear of sunset on the water. We had dinners at this quiet diner on Main called Rosie's. We'd split fries and talk about stray dogs, music, old books. She didn't care for horror movies, said they made her feel itchy, but she loved ghost stories, especially local ones. She said every town had a few, and most people were too afraid to admit they'd seen something. I found that kind of thinking romantic, poetic even. But then, small things started to show. One time, I got a call from my old roommate, Jason. We hadn't talked in months, and he was passing through town. I met him for a drink. Told Ava ahead of time, even sent her a selfie of us at the bar. When I got back, she was sitting on my front steps. Not crying, just still. "You could have invited me," she said quietly. "I didn't think you'd want to come. It was just catching up. Do you always hide the things you think I won't like?" I laughed, not unkindly. "Ava, come on, it's not that deep." She stood and walked home without another word. I chalked it up to insecurity. I tried to be patient, but it got worse. She didn't like when I took too long to respond to texts. Said it made her feel unimportant. She hated when I mentioned my past relationships, even in passing. She once asked me, in a low, careful voice, if I still thought about my ex when we were kissing. "I need to know," she said. "I need to feel safe." That word, safe, kept coming up. And I kept convincing myself it wasn't as bad as it seemed. By week 6, I was tired. Not angry. Just tired. One Friday, I told her I needed a little space to clear my head. Not a breakup. Just a few days to breathe. I said it kindly, softly. I remember my exact words. "I care about you, but I'm not myself lately. Let me reset." She nodded. Said she understood. Even smiled a little. Then she whispered, "You'll come back. You always do." That should have chilled me. But I just nodded and drove home. 3 nights later, she texted me. "Ava, hey, I know you needed space, but something weird happened. Can we talk? It's important. Please meet me behind the old train station." 10:15. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. The old train station in Hartford Ridge hadn't run in over 30 years. It was mostly used by high schoolers for late-night smoke sessions and dares. I hadn't been there since I was 17. I could have said no. Could have asked to talk on the phone. But she'd never sent me a message like that before. There was something almost panicked in the way she wrote. I replied, "All right, I'll be there." That night was windless. Dead still. I parked near the station at 10:10. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled in. No streetlights reached this far, just the dull silver glow of the moon through passing clouds. I got out, locked my car, and followed the old path around the station's rear entrance. I saw her silhouette first, standing near the rusted tracks. "Ava?" I called out. She didn't turn, just said, "Thank you for coming." "What's going on?" I asked, stepping closer. She finally faced me. Her expression was off. Not sad, not scared, just unreadable. "I thought you should know," she said softly. "There's something I never told you. Something I couldn't. Until now." I was 5 feet from her when I heard the second set of footsteps. Behind me. Fast. Before I could turn, someone grabbed my arm and yanked hard. I stumbled backward, slammed into the ground. My shoulder lit up in pain. I twisted and saw a man, mid-30s, buzzed hair, thick arms, wearing a gray hoodie and gloves. "Get off me," I shouted. He didn't speak, just drove his knee into my chest. I wheezed, vision flashing white. "Stop," I gasped. "Ava, help!" But she didn't move, didn't flinch, just watched. The man leaned down close. I smelled chewing tobacco and pine sap. "Don't move," he whispered. He rifled through my pockets, took my wallet, my phone, and pulled something from his own. A blade. Small, folding, but sharp. I panicked, kicked out blindly, caught him in the leg. He grunted and stumbled. I scrambled to my feet and ran, blood roaring in my ears. Behind me, I heard Ava yell, "Let him go!" "That's enough." The man didn't follow. I didn't stop running until I hit my car. I didn't go home. I went straight to the police station, told them everything. They looked skeptical, until I gave them names. They brought in Ava 2 days later. She didn't deny it. She said the man, his name was Mason Delroy, was her ex, but the story shifted every time she told it. First, they were old friends, then distant cousins, then someone she met through a group. The story bent like wet paper. What they pieced together was this. After I asked for space, Ava spiraled. She told Mason that I had used her, lied to her, made her feel unsafe. She said I needed to be taught a lesson. Just fear, not harm. That's what she claimed. Mason had a record. Assault, petty theft. He was out on probation. This was all enough for the cops to charge them both. I showed up to every court date. She never once looked at me. It's been almost a year since then. I moved again, out of Hartford Ridge, got a new number, new locks, got a dog too, a mutt named Riley who barks at every leaf that moves. I like that about him. Some nights, I still wake up thinking I hear footsteps, or her voice whispering from somewhere near the door. What stayed with me wasn't the tackle or the knife. It was her face, that calm expression as I begged for help. I used to think horror was monsters, ghosts, things that rattled chains. Now I know horror can have soft eyes and a quiet voice. It can ask you to meet at the place where you used to hold hands. Horror doesn't need to scream. Sometimes it just needs to wait. Story 2. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who looks over his shoulder just walking to his mailbox. But here I am. My name is Alex Mercer. I live in a small, sleepy town called Fairpoint, Indiana, about 2 hours north of Louisville. It's the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and still wave at you when they pass in traffic. Or at least, it used to be that kind of place for me. I work from home most days, writing back-end code for a healthcare company. It's steady work, nothing glamorous, but it pays the rent on my 2-bedroom house tucked away at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. No kids, no pets. Just me, my coffee pot, and my dual monitors. I met Eliza at my friend Jordan's engagement party in early 2022. She wasn't even supposed to be there. She was Jordan's fiance's cousin, tagging along because her weekend plans had fallen through. I remember watching her from across the room, completely unaware of the conversation happening around me. She wasn't loud or flashy like some people. In fact, she seemed almost bored. But there was something sharp in her silence. The way she watched people. Observed. Later, she caught me outside when I stepped out for air. She lit a cigarette and said, "You don't belong in there either, do you?" That was the start of it. Eliza had a voice like midnight. Low, smooth, strangely calm. She wasn't the kind of person who laughs loudly or talks just to fill silence, but she was beautiful. Porcelain skin, black hair cut sharp to her jawline, eyes so dark you couldn't tell pupil from iris. She had this energy about her, like she knew something everyone else didn't. Like the world was a secret she'd already solved. We started seeing each other quietly. Dinner, drinks, a few weekend stays at my place. At first, I liked how private she was. No social media, no need to document every meal or trip. She said things like, "People share too much and then complain they've got no peace." That made sense to me. She wasn't the type to bombard you with texts. But when she did reach out, it always carried weight. "Thinking of you." Or, "I dreamt of you last night." Stuff that felt poetic when you were still floating in the first warm waves of infatuation. But it changed. It always changes, doesn't it? By month 4, I started noticing how she always wanted to know where I was. Not in a curious way, more like tracking movements. "Are you still at the store? Why did your location show you took a different route home?" I'd brush it off, thinking maybe she just had some baggage. We all do. Then came the first fight. I canceled a dinner plan last minute because I had to debug a client emergency. She didn't yell or cry. Instead, she just stared at me over the phone for a few seconds and said, "You're lying. There's someone else." I tried to explain, but she hung up. That was a Thursday. Friday morning, I walked outside to find a dead bird on my porch. Wings splayed, head turned unnaturally. Looked like it had been placed there. I told myself it was coincidence. I still remember the feeling that crept over me when I told Jordan about the argument the next day. He shifted uncomfortably and said, "Man, Eliza's not great with rejection. My girl said she had some rough breakups before." I laughed it off, but I started noticing patterns. Her showing up uninvited, always knowing when I'd be alone. Once I came back from a coffee run and she was sitting on my porch swing, smiling like she'd lived there her whole life. "I just missed you," she said. The way she said it didn't feel romantic. It felt strategic. I finally ended things in March 2023. We were sitting in her car outside my place. I told her I didn't think we were working, that I needed some space. She didn't yell. She didn't even look upset. She just tilted her head and said, "You're wrong, but okay." She drove off. No drama, no crying. For about a week, I thought I'd dodged a bullet. And then, the emails started. New accounts every time I blocked one. Most were short, just a sentence or two. I dreamed of the house again. "You looked so peaceful this morning. Why don't you hear me?" Then came the sound. A knock on my window at 3:12 a.m. Just once. I got up, looked outside, nothing. The street was empty. I changed my locks the next day. 2 weeks later, I found my back door slightly ajar. Nothing taken, nothing moved. Just open. A part of me didn't want to call the police. I kept thinking, what would I even say? My ex might be creeping around my property, but I have no proof. Then on April 14th, I opened my fridge and saw a single lemon inside. I hadn't bought lemons. I don't even like lemons. That broke me in a way I can't explain. It was intimate, invasive. Someone had been inside, quietly, deliberately. I checked all the locks, bought cameras, and installed them the next day. I sent one final message to one of the burner emails. "I know it's you. Stay away. I will call the police." No reply. For a while, it stopped. Then came June 8th. The cameras caught her. 3:09 a.m., Eliza standing in my backyard, just out of reach of the motion lights, staring at the house, Not moving, not walking, just standing. She was barefoot, wearing a long gray coat. Her hair looked soaked. The timestamp showed she stood there for 7 minutes. I went to the police. Officer Klein took the report. "Without trespassing, there's not much we can charge her with," he said. I asked what I should do. "Document everything," he said, "and don't confront her." June 23rd. I came home from the grocery store and the front door was open. I froze. My keys dangled in my hand. I backed away and called 911. This time they sent 2 cars. Officer Klein was one of them. They swept the place. No one inside, nothing stolen. But the attic hatch was open. I hadn't opened it in months. When they checked, they found a pillow and a blanket, half a granola bar. She had been living there. I pressed charges. They put out a warrant. But Eliza was gone. She left her car in front of her old apartment and disappeared. No credit card activity, no social media, no work contact, gone like smoke. I moved, sold everything I didn't need, quit my job, and relocated to a small town in Maine. Changed my number, new locks, no forwarding address. I thought that would be enough. Until last week. I came home from a walk and found a lemon on my kitchen counter. There are no cameras this time. There's no Eliza on paper. But I still sleep with my phone under my pillow, and every morning I check the attic. Just to be sure. Because love doesn't wait in your walls. Love doesn't watch you sleep, and love never leaves lemons behind. Story 3. I didn't think much of it when Anya messaged me again. Not at first. It had been almost 8 months since we'd broken up, amicably, or so I thought, and her name lighting up my screen felt like nostalgia more than danger. Back then, I had no reason to suspect anything. If anything, I felt guilty for how I left things. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start properly. I was 27 when I met Anya. Living in a small town called Haleford, working as a content editor for a digital magazine that nobody really read but somehow paid my bills. My flat was small, 1 bedroom, paper-thin walls, a kitchen you had to turn sideways in just to open the fridge. But it was mine. My first real place. Solo. No flatmates, no passive-aggressive notes about dishes, just me and the soft hum of my laptop. I met her through Bumble, you know how that goes. Swipe, match, awkward small talk that somehow morphs into plans. Her profile was minimal. 3 pictures. One in a bookstore, one by the sea, one in her bedroom mirror. She had dark brown hair always in a messy bun, oversized jumpers, and a kind of softness in her face that made her seem approachable. Her bio said, "Night thinker. Chai over coffee. Ask me what I'm reading." So I did. We met for the first time at this tiny independent cafe just off Briar Lane. She ordered masala chai and smiled like she already knew I'd be fun to mess with. Our conversation was easy. She had this calm presence that put you at ease, like she was always observing but never judging. We started dating not long after. Slowly at first. Weekends, brunches, bookstore dates, lazy Sundays. She wasn't clingy. If anything, I was the one messaging more often. She'd take hours to reply sometimes, but would always come back with something witty or deep or weird enough to make me laugh. She had these little quirks, like smelling books before reading them, or leaving me sticky notes with cryptic quotes when she left in the morning. At first, it felt thoughtful, artistic even, but there was always something slightly off. The first time I noticed it was maybe 2 months in. We were watching a documentary about cults. She loved true crime. And there was this bit where a former member talked about being followed after leaving the group. Anya had gone quiet. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "It's funny how easy it is to make someone disappear. You just need to know them well enough." I laughed it off. We dated for just under 6 months. And to be fair, the first 4 were good. But then she started getting possessive. Not in an obvious way. No shouting, no ultimatums, but subtle things. She'd get cold if I mentioned a female colleague. She'd suddenly drop by my place unannounced after I told her I had plans. Once, when I didn't reply to her for a few hours because I was stuck in a meeting, I came home to find she'd left a note under my door. "Silent treatment doesn't suit you. Don't do that again." She said it was a joke. I let it slide. Eventually, I ended it. We met at a park bench near the canal, public, safe. I was honest but gentle. Told her I needed space, that it wasn't working, that I wasn't ready for something so intense. She nodded. Didn't cry, didn't argue, just said, "Okay." We didn't talk after that. She didn't block me, didn't unfollow me, just faded out of my daily life like she'd never been there. Until she came back. It was late October, gray skies and rain that felt endless. I was just back from visiting my parents in Newcastle when I got her message. "Hey, this is super random. Can I ask a favor?" I paused. Read it again. I should have ignored it. Should have trusted my gut. But I didn't. I replied, "Depends. What's up?" She said she'd been forced out of her flat. Dodgy landlord, long story, and her new place wouldn't be ready for another 4 days. She needed somewhere to crash, just for a few nights. Said she'd sleep on the couch, be no trouble, wouldn't overstep. I stared at the message for a long time. My hands hovered over the keyboard. The rational part of me screamed, "No. Say no." But the part that still felt guilty, the one that left her on that park bench, spoke louder. "Okay, just for a few nights." She showed up the next evening with a small rucksack and a canvas tote bag. Dressed in layers like she'd just walked through a thunderstorm, hair tied up, no makeup, smiling like we'd seen each other yesterday. "Hey, stranger," she said. "Hey, come in," I said, stepping aside. We did a bit of small talk. She asked about work. I asked about her new place. She made herself a cup of tea and curled up on the couch with a book. It felt weird, yes, but manageable. She didn't do anything strange that first night. The second night, I woke up around 2 a.m. Something was off. You know that feeling when you're not alone? When you sense someone watching? I rolled over and saw her. She was standing in my bedroom doorway, not moving, not blinking, just watching me. I sat up slowly, heart hammering. "Anya?" I whispered. She didn't respond, just turned and walked away without a word. I lay awake for hours, telling myself it was nothing. Maybe she needed the bathroom. Maybe she was sleepwalking. But the next morning, she acted completely normal. Chatted over toast. Asked if I wanted to watch a movie that night. I said nothing. Night 3 was worse. This time, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Close. Too close. My eyes shot open. She was standing right beside my bed, leaning down. Her face inches from mine. I froze. Then she whispered, "You look peaceful when you sleep." I jolted upright. She stepped back, still calm, and walked out of the room. I locked the door after that. She left the next morning, said her new place was ready early. Packed fast, no hugs, just a smile. "Thanks again. You're a good one," she said. And then she was gone. I should have felt relieved. But then the notes started. The first one was on my windowsill. "You should really lock your windows better." I lived on the 3rd floor. I checked every lock, every corner. Nothing broken, nothing tampered with. Then the texts came, from an unknown number. "Still sleeping well? I miss watching you." I changed my number. Then things started moving. Small things. Cupboards I hadn't opened. Books out of order. My toothbrush wet when I hadn't brushed. Clothes I never left out, folded on the bed. One night I came home and found my bedroom mirror smeared with the word, "Mine," in lipstick. I moved the next day, didn't tell anyone where, took time off work, stayed off social media, paranoid beyond reason. I told myself she'd get bored, move on. Weeks passed. Silence. Then one night, walking home from a late shift, I saw her. Across the road, under a flickering street lamp, dressed in black, hair loose, just standing there, watching me. I kept walking, didn't look back, and I never saw her again. I've moved twice since then. I sleep with the lights on. I check every lock twice. I still don't know what was real, if she was just mentally unwell or something worse. But here's the part that keeps me up most nights. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel it again. That shift in the air. That presence. Like someone's in the room, watching. And I remember her whisper, "You look peaceful when you sleep." And I wonder if I'll ever sleep peacefully again. Story 4. I never believed in the one, not until I met Nira. We met in a laundromat of all places. I was 27, working long shifts as a systems analyst for a mid-sized logistics company in Portland. Not exactly the romantic city people imagine. It was February, gray, cold, wet. I had just gone through a nasty breakup with someone I'd dated for nearly 3 years. No big drama, just distance and eventual resentment. My confidence was shot. I remember feeling like I was turning into one of those people who just sort of drifted into middle age without ever really living. That night, the laundromat was empty except for me and her. She was sitting cross-legged on one of the counters, scrolling through a cracked phone screen, earbuds in, swaying slightly to whatever she was listening to. What caught my eye wasn't just her looks, it was her stillness. She had that kind of presence that made everything else feel like background noise. I needed quarters. The machine was busted. I tapped her shoulder. She pulled out one earbud and smiled. "You look like you hate being here more than I do," she said. That's how it started. We ended up sitting in the corner for 2 hours talking. She was a painter, or trying to be. Waitressed part-time. Her name was Nira Lyle. She had this way of speaking that made everything feel important, even dumb stuff, like the smell of dryer sheets, or how her dad used to whistle Chopin while fixing broken radios. We started dating a week later. The first 4 months were electric. That's the only word for it. She was impulsive, vibrant, unapologetic. She'd sneak into my apartment and leave drawings of me on sticky notes all over the fridge. Some were funny, others disturbingly accurate. She'd wake me up at 2 a.m. just to watch movies with subtitles, or take me outside to see how quiet the world gets when it thinks you're not listening. I'd never felt that seen, that wanted. I didn't notice the cracks at first. Maybe I didn't want to. The first red flag was how she reacted to silence. Not just mine, any kind. If I took longer than usual to text her back, she'd call me 8, 9 times. If I didn't pick up, I'd get walls of messages. "Are you mad at me? What did I do? You hate me now, right? Just tell me if you want to leave." At first, I chalked it up to insecurity. We all have baggage, right? She told me her last boyfriend cheated on her with a coworker and ghosted her out of nowhere. I felt bad. I reassured her. I thought that was what a good boyfriend was supposed to do. But her need for reassurance started to turn ritualistic. Every day she'd ask, "Do you still love me?" Once she asked it 3 times during breakfast. I joked about it. Her face fell like I'd slapped her. "It just helps to hear it," she whispered. She started showing up at my job, unannounced, saying she was in the area. She wasn't. I worked in a business park miles from her place. I remember the night I decided to end things. It was raining hard. She came over soaked, shivering, eyes red. Said she'd been outside my apartment for hours, unsure if I was alone. She'd convinced herself I was cheating. I wasn't, Not even close. When I told her we needed space, she didn't cry. She just nodded, hugged me, said, "I get it. I love you anyway." The next morning, she was gone. She blocked me on everything. Her phone was disconnected. I went to her apartment. She'd moved out. The landlord said she left in the middle of the night. For 3 years, I didn't hear a word. By then, I had moved on. Or thought I had. I was 30 now, living in the northeast side of the city with my new partner, Sarah. She was the opposite of Nira in nearly every way. Grounded, dependable, soft-spoken. A nurse at Providence Medical. We were talking about buying a place together. I had finally let myself believe that life had stabilized, that I had escaped the chaos. Then one Friday evening in early October, it started. Sarah was working a night shift. I was home alone, finishing up some project documentation and listening to rain hit the windows. Around 10:30, I heard a knock. Not a buzz, a knock. Software measured. 3 beats. Pause. Then again. I opened the door, and there she was. Nira. Or something like her. I froze. My mouth dried instantly. My gut sank like it knew something before my brain did. Her face wasn't right. It was off, hollowed. Her cheeks jutted out sharply, her lips overfilled and cracked, like melted wax trying to hold shape. Her nose was razor thin. Her skin looked stretched, almost translucent in the porch light. But her eyes, God, her eyes. I remembered those eyes. Still green, but too wide, lids pulled unnaturally back. They didn't blink, didn't move, like glass eyes on a doll. She smiled. A twitchy, jerky movement that didn't reach the rest of her face. "Hi, Eli," she said, voice strained like her throat was tight. "Do you love me now?" I slammed the door, locked it, called the police with trembling hands. They arrived fast. When they got there, she was just standing on the sidewalk, arms limp at her sides, whispering something to herself. One officer told me later it was a single phrase, repeated over and over. "I fixed it. I fixed it. I fixed it." They detained her, took her in for evaluation. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Detective Kendra Morales from the city PD contacted me the next day. She was kind but direct. "Nira Lyle's been through a hell of a lot," she said. "We've uncovered medical records across multiple states. She's undergone over 70 elective surgeries in the past 3 years. Most of them illegal, cash only. Unlicensed practitioners in border towns, a few black market clinics in rural Oregon. The procedures weren't just cosmetic, they were extreme, reconstructive, experimental, dangerous." She paused. "In some cases, self-inflicted." When they asked her why, all she kept saying was, "He said I wasn't enough. I just had to become someone who was." I felt sick. A week later, I received a letter. Handwritten, folded neatly, no envelope. "Please, one last time, come see what I made for you. Then I'll leave forever. 1710 Whitmore Street. Back unit. Bring no one." I should have burned it. Instead, I told Sarah I needed to see a client after hours. I lied. Guilt twisted inside me, but part of me wanted closure. Some final explanation. The address was in a decaying industrial part of town. I parked under a flickering street lamp. The unit was behind a row of shuttered auto shops. The door was open. Inside smelled of chemicals. And something sweet, like rotting fruit. The lights were dim. The living room was bare, except for one thing. A mannequin, life-sized, dressed in a pale pink dress, synthetic blonde wig, face painted thick with makeup, glossed lips, wet-looking eyes. As I stepped closer, I realized the eyes weren't fake. They were glass, but they had veins. Someone had glued capillary-like threads around them. Real eyelashes, bits of flesh stitched onto the cheeks. And then, she appeared. Nira stepped out of the shadows, barefoot, holding a scalpel. Her face, closer now, was a patchwork of failed surgery and desperation. Bandaged in places, raw in others. Her hands were shaking. "I named her Love," she said. "She's everything I thought you wanted. I made her for you. But if you won't love her, then maybe—" She raised the scalpel. I ran. The rest is a blur. I shoved her aside, bolted for the door, screaming. A nearby tenant heard and called the cops. They arrived in time. She didn't fight, just stood there, arms raised, crying silently. Inside the apartment, they found more mannequins, 7 in total. Each had names etched onto their plastic feet. Better Nira. Obedient Nira. Perfect girl. Silent wife. In a drawer, they found her journals, page after page of disturbing notes, sketches of faces, surgical plans, photos of me she must have taken from afar, and one final page, written over and over in red ink. "He'll love me if I become nothing but what he needs." Nira was committed to a long-term psychiatric facility. Diagnosed with multiple disorders, severe BDD, delusional misidentification, erotomania. The doctors said she was lost inside herself. Built her identity around someone else's love. Mine. But that wasn't love. It was obsession wearing love's skin. I moved, changed jobs. Sarah tried to stay. But I couldn't love her properly after that. Not because I missed Nira. Far from it. But because part of me started doubting everything. Every glance. Every "I love you." Every time I let someone get close. I still dream about the mannequin. That plastic grin. Those stitched cheeks. I see Nira's eyes behind them, wide and wet and waiting. People say love is patient. Love is kind. But I know now, when love turns to obsession, it doesn't just want to be seen. It wants to replace you. Story 5. I met Aria during the winter quarter of my second year at Rainwood City College. It was a gray campus, the kind where moss crawled up the bricks and you never saw the sun for more than an hour a week. I was majoring in psychology, but barely hanging on. My dad had just gone through his 3rd stint in rehab, and I was working weekends at a car wash to pay for groceries. Most days, I didn't talk to anyone outside of class. Aria wasn't in any of mine. I first saw her outside of East Hall, sitting cross-legged on a stone bench with a battered copy of The Prophet in her lap. Her hair was jet black, not dyed, but the kind of black that looked almost blue under the clouds. Her skin was pale, but not in a sickly way. It was smooth and clean, like porcelain. She always wore layers, long wool skirts and faded sweaters, never a phone in hand. She looked like a girl from another time. At first, I just noticed her in passing. She sat under the same tree every day at 3 p.m., sometimes writing in a small leather journal, sometimes just watching the sky like it had something to say. She didn't seem shy, just apart, like she wasn't meant to be here, in this place, surrounded by vending machines and half-priced burritos and flyers about Sexual Health Week. After a couple weeks, I saw her in the campus cafe. She was sitting in the corner, alone, stirring tea slowly and reading letters to a young poet. Something about that hit me hard. I don't know what pushed me to do it. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe I was tired of disappearing in a crowd. I walked up to her and said, "That's one of my favorites." She looked up slowly. Her eyes were a strange shade of gray-green, soft but unreadable. "I like the quiet in it," she said. "It doesn't try to fix things, just lets them be." We didn't talk long. I told her my name. She told me hers. Aria, no last name. After that, we kept seeing each other. Little talks turned into walks. Walks turned into long silences that didn't feel uncomfortable. She never asked me about my classes, or my family, or my plans. She asked me what I dreamed about, what I feared when I was 7. If I ever felt like I was from somewhere else, not a country, but a different kind of place entirely. By the second month, we were inseparable. I introduced her to my roommate, Darren. He was wary. "She's weird, man," he said one night when she left. "Pretty, yeah, but something's off." "Off how?" He shook his head. "It's like she's studying you, like a cat watching a bird." I brushed it off. Darren believed in conspiracy podcasts and argued with strangers online for fun. I figured he didn't know what to make of someone deep, but I started noticing things. She never talked about her past. I once asked her where she grew up, and she smiled faintly, then said, "I don't remember. Just here, I guess?" She didn't have any social media, no email address she'd give me. She had a flip phone, the kind with physical buttons, and she never used it unless she absolutely had to. And then there were the photos. One night I visited her apartment, bare walls, lit only by candles and one dim lamp. She was in the kitchen making tea, and I was flipping through a small photo album on the shelf. The pictures were all of her, with different men. The backgrounds changed: a river, a snow-covered field, a graveyard, but the expression on her face was always the same. Serene, peaceful, her head tilted just slightly toward the man beside her. But each of the men looked haunted, sunken-eyed, hollow, like they hadn't slept in weeks. And none of them smiled. I put the album back before she came in. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was finally with someone who didn't play games or bury her head in Instagram filters. Still, I asked her, casually, about the photos. She didn't get angry. She just said, "They were people I loved. People who understood." Understood what? Her eyes met mine. That this world isn't our home. I laughed, awkwardly. "What, like heaven?" She didn't smile. "It's not a place with clouds and harps. It's just a different state of being. Lighter. Free from the weight of all this." She gestured around the room. The walls, the apartment, her body. "And how do people get there?" I asked, half joking. She just said, "The door opens when it's time." I wish I had walked out right then. But I didn't. I stayed, made tea with her, kissed her on the couch, even when my stomach twisted a little. Because she was kind to me. She listened. She made me feel like I mattered. And I hadn't felt that in a long time. A few weeks later, she asked me to come with her to a cabin in the woods outside of town. Her family, she said, used to own it. "It's quiet there, no reception, just trees and snow. I want to be with you there, just us." I hesitated, but said yes. We drove 2 hours north. Her car was old, but clean. No music, just the sound of tires. Inside, it smelled of cedar and dust. A fireplace, a bed, a small table. No TV, no clocks. Just candlelight and a sense of stillness. That night, after dinner, she took my hand and said, "Can I show you something?" I nodded. She led me outside to a clearing behind the cabin. Snow crunched under our boots. She knelt in the center of the clearing and opened a small wooden box. Inside were 3 white stones, each etched with a different symbol: a circle, a flame, and an open door. She placed them in a triangle on the snow. Then she turned to me and said, "Do you trust me?" Something in me screamed to run, but I nodded. "I want us to cross over, together, tonight." I took a step back. "Arya, what are you talking about?" She looked at me with such tenderness I almost cried. "You feel it too, don't you? That ache, like you don't belong here, like something's calling you somewhere else." She reached into her coat and pulled out 2 vials. "Chamomile, valerian, angel's trumpet. I've done the measurements. You won't feel any pain, just warmth, like falling asleep." I stared at her, frozen. "This isn't love," I whispered. "This is suicide." "No," she said. "This is return." I turned and ran. I don't remember how I got back to the cabin. I just remember the trees whipping past and her voice calling after me. Not angry, not loud, just soft and pleading. I locked myself in the bathroom, stayed there until sunrise. When I came out, she was gone. I hiked to the road, caught a ride back with a tow truck, blocked her number that night. A week later, the police came to my door. They had found a body in the woods near that same cabin. A man in his 20s. Toxicology confirmed a blend of sedatives and poisonous plants. He was wearing white. Arya had been with him when they arrived, sitting beside his body, holding his hand. She didn't resist arrest. She smiled. "He's home now," she said. She was declared insane, committed to a psychiatric hospital near Riverbend. No release, no visitors. The officers told me I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like I'd stared into something I couldn't explain. Something that looked like love, but wasn't. I still dream of her sometimes. She's standing in the snow, under gray skies, arms outstretched, whispering, "You forgot." But I remember. Come with me. And behind her, in the trees, there's always a soft light. A house, glowing. I wake up just before I reach it. Every time. And I wonder, what if she wasn't wrong? What if this really isn't our home? Story 6. I wasn't looking for anything serious when I moved to Greenfield. I was 23, fresh off a bad breakup, and the only thing on my mind was getting back to myself. Greenfield's a small town outside of Sacramento. Not exactly glamorous, but quiet, affordable, and close enough to plumbing jobs that I could keep busy and out of my head. I rented a modest one-bedroom above a mechanic's garage. The walls were thin, the water pressure sucked, and the windows faced an alley full of barking dogs and broken lights. But it was mine. After couch surfing for 3 months in Modesto after my ex left, that place felt like freedom. My name's Isaac Carter, and I'll never forget that summer. It started like any other, but it ended in a way I still don't fully believe. The day I met Tessa was just like every other weekday. I was sweaty, tired, and running late to a leak job on Nettle Street. The client's name was Mrs. Holloway. Sweet old lady, always smelled like lavender and cooked enough for 10 people. Tessa was her niece. Said she was just visiting, helping around the house while her aunt recovered from hip surgery. She answered the door in leggings and a big denim jacket, holding a half-drunk iced coffee. Her dark hair was tied back, a few strands loose, no makeup. She smiled at me like we were already friends. "You're the plumber? You look too normal." I laughed. "Is that a compliment?" She shrugged, leaning against the doorframe. "Guess we'll find out." It was harmless at first. She followed me room to room, asking about what each tool did, telling me random facts about herself, how she'd studied psychology but dropped out after her dad died, how she hated big cities, how she only drank almond milk. That kind of stuff. I assumed she was just bored. When I left that day, she handed me a little note with her number on it. "If you ever want to hang out," she said. I texted her that night. Just something simple. "Hey, this is Isaac, the normal-looking plumber." She replied in under a minute. "Hey, normal, you busy right now?" I wasn't. Our first hangout turned into dinner. That turned into late-night drives, music playing low, her legs on my dashboard, windows down. She made me feel wanted again. After my last relationship, I'd been hollow. But with Tessa, it was like being plugged back into something electric. She'd make me playlists, leave little post-its on my windshield saying things like, "Hope today doesn't suck 3," or "You're not allowed to be sad anymore." She was funny, too. Once she prank called my boss pretending to be a city inspector. He didn't laugh, fired me for 3 days until I begged my way back. But I secretly thought it was hilarious. After 6 weeks, she moved in. I didn't even think about it. She was always at my place anyway, and Mrs. Holloway had been moved to a rehab center. Tessa claimed she didn't want to be alone in that big, empty house. I told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. The first time I saw something off, it was subtle. I had a client call me one night, a young woman named Marisol who owned a flower shop, and I stepped outside to take it. Tessa watched from the window the whole time. After I hung up, she asked, "Who was she?" "Just a customer." Her sink exploded. Tessa nodded, but something flickered in her face. That night, when I got home from the job, she was silent, cold. I woke up the next morning to find she'd gone through my phone. Not just texts, my email, contacts, old photos. She admitted it like it was no big deal. "I just needed to know you're not like the others," she said, curling up next to me. "I've been lied to before." I let it go. Thought maybe she had trust issues, don't we all? But it didn't stop. She deleted Marisol's contact. Then she started asking me to unfollow old friends on social media. Any woman she didn't recognize was a threat. Even my cousin Sophia. When I refused, she cried. Real tears, shaking, breathing hard like she was about to pass out. "You don't understand what it's like to be scared every day," she whispered. "Please, Isaac, just me and you. That's all I need." I caved. 2 months in, I barely recognized my life. I was still working, but everything outside of that belonged to Tessa. My apartment, my time, my social circle, all gone or filtered through her. At first, she'd just make suggestions. "You should stay in tonight." "Your friends don't really get you." "Why are you always trying to fix things for other people?" Then came the manipulation. Once, she faked passing out when I said I was heading to a coworker's birthday. I found her on the floor, limp. Called 911. She miraculously came to when the paramedics arrived and acted confused like nothing happened. They said her vitals were fine. She told them she was just tired. Another time, she hid my car keys the night before a job and claimed I must have lost them. I ended up missing the appointment and got written up. I tore the apartment apart that night, found the keys under the sink, wrapped in one of her scarves. She just stared at me. "You shouldn't yell," she said calmly. "Yelling ruins love." I wanted to leave. I really did. But every time I brought it up, she collapsed, literally, on the floor, in tears, scratching her arms. Once she slammed her head into the fridge and said she just wanted the noise to stop. I was scared to leave. Scared of what she'd do. Scared of what I might walk back into one day. And yet, part of me still felt sorry for her. She told me about her mom, a drug addict who'd once locked her in a closet overnight. Her dad, who died in prison. Her ex-boyfriend who cheated on her with her best friend and then ghosted her completely. "Everyone leaves," she said. "You won't, right?" I said no. But inside, I was already gone. The breaking point came one night in October. I came home late, delayed by a pipe burst downtown, and found the apartment cold and dark. No lights, no noise, just the smell of bleach. I called out for her. No answer. I checked the bathroom. That's where I found it. My name, written over and over in lipstick on the mirror. Hundreds of times. Isaac in all caps, smudged, layered, desperate. And on the floor, a photo of me as a kid, burned around the edges. Where did she get that? I'd never shown her my childhood photos. They were in a box in my parents' attic. I backed out of the room. My hands were shaking. My stomach dropped. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I packed a bag and left while she was out getting groceries. I drove straight to my brother's place in Elk Grove and told him everything. He looked at me like I'd just escaped a cult. "Dude, that's not just crazy. That's dangerous," he said. He helped me file a police report, but since I didn't have proof of harm or a protective order, they couldn't do much. Still, I changed my number. Blocked her everywhere. Found a short-term rental through a buddy from work. Went ghost. Tessa didn't take it well. She showed up at my brother's house twice. The first time, she just sat in her car, staring. The second time, she left a dead bird on the porch in a shoebox. No note, just the bird. Its neck was broken. I finally got a restraining order. It took weeks to go through. By the time it did, she was gone. For months, I tried to move on, dated someone casually, worked nonstop, saw a therapist who told me I likely had trauma bonding. Whatever. I just wanted my life back. Then, a week ago, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, Isaac, written in red ink. Inside, a photo of me sleeping. It wasn't old. I recognized the shirt I wore that night. It was taken from outside my window. And on the back, just 4 words. You said forever, right? She's still out there. I moved again. New city, new locks, new everything. But some nights, I still hear tapping. And when I do, I don't sleep. I sit up, heart racing, eyes on the window, waiting for that grin in the dark. Because I know Tessa, and I know this isn't over. Not for her, not for me, not ever. Story 7. I never thought loneliness could make you blind. I was 21 when I met her. My name is Ayan Verma. Back then, I had just moved out of my hometown of Indore and relocated to a small, dusty city called Bhairavpur in Madhya Pradesh. Nothing much ever happened there. One main road, 3 dabas, and a college that had more monkeys than students. I wasn't a student, though. I was a junior technician at an auto-electrical repair shop near the bus depot. 6 days a week, 9 to 9. My only real off time was Sunday evenings, where I'd grab chai from the corner stall and scroll through my phone outside the dorm I was renting. That's how I met her. Ria. I was leaning against the wall outside my building when she walked up, holding an old silver Sony camera in one hand and a paper bag in the other. She wore ripped jeans, had red dyed ends in her black hair, and looked like she belonged in Mumbai, not Bhairavpur. Hey, she said casually. Does your dorm have an open terrace? Yeah, 4th floor, why? She grinned. Sunset. I'm trying to get a time lapse. She said her name was Ria Sharma. She was 23, from Jabalpur, and had come to Bhairavpur for space. She said it like a joke, but never explained it. Said she was into photography, art, music. Whatever paid. She was staying with her cousin a few buildings down, said they didn't really get along. That first conversation lasted 2 hours. After that, I started seeing her more and more. Sometimes she'd be on the terrace shooting clouds. Other times she'd wait outside the mechanic shop with samosas, pretending she was just passing by. I started timing my breaks to catch her. She was magnetic, witty, sharp. She had this way of making even silence feel interesting. 2 weeks later, she kissed me, said, "Don't overthink it, Ayan. I like how quiet your brain is." I didn't know what that meant, but I liked her too much to ask. We fell into a rhythm, late-night walks to the tea stall, dumb conversations about life and music and loneliness. And yeah, we slept together. It all felt too good to question. But then, small things started to change. The first odd thing happened about a month in. I'd promised to call my ma that night. Sunday evening ritual. But Ria showed up at the dorm before I could. "Come walk with me," she said, holding a flask of coffee and that damn camera again. "I gotta call Ma," I said. She smiled. "You call her every Sunday, nah?" "Just call her tomorrow." Come on. It seemed harmless, but the next time I told her I was going home for a weekend, she pouted. "Why do you need to go all the way back to Indore? You said your parents are fine." "They are. I just miss home sometimes." "Or maybe," she said slowly, "you're trying to get space from me." I laughed. She didn't. I went anyway, but she called me 10 times on the train. The next day, she sent me a long message saying how abandoned she felt. I didn't reply right away. I didn't know what to say. When I got back, she was waiting outside my dorm. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She handed me a small canvas painting. She had made it while I was gone. My face on one side, hers on the other, with thorns between us. She smiled. We can't let things grow between us. Not even a little bit, okay? I should have been freaked out, but instead I felt guilty, like I'd betrayed her by needing space. That was her power. She never screamed, never shouted, never hit. But she controlled everything. She started coming to the garage during my shifts, just standing outside, watching. The guys joked about it at first, then they got uncomfortable. "Boss, your girlfriend's intense, yar," G2 once said, half laughing. I laughed too. But something about the way she watched, like she was checking if I'd smile at someone too long. Then she started texting me at work. Non-stop. Ria. That girl with the purple dupatta? Who is she? Ria. Why didn't you reply? Are you ignoring me? Ria. Do you think I'm too much? Ria. Just say it, Ayan. If you don't love me. It was exhausting. One night I tried to talk about it. Told her I needed a little space. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just looked at me and whispered, "You're the only person I have left, Ayan. If you go, I don't know what I'll do." I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, what if she hurt herself? What if something happened because I wanted space? So I stayed. 6 months in, I had stopped talking to most of my friends. Even Sagar, my best friend since we were 12. Ria once found an old photo of Sagar and me at a bar and spent the entire night accusing me of hiding things. She once went through my call logs while I was in the shower. Another time, she messaged my boss from my phone, pretending to be me, and told him I needed time off for mental health reasons. She said it was because she cared, that I needed a break. I believed her. Until one night, I came back to the dorm and found a note taped to my door. She watched me from across the road last night. The girl with red hair. She just stood there. "This is getting weird, bro." Sagar, I called him. He told me she'd shown up outside his building 2 nights ago. Said she asked him what he and I used to talk about. Whether he had feelings for me. Whether he ever tried to break us up. She never mentioned it to me. When I asked her about it, she smiled. "I just wanted to see what kind of friends you used to have." That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. I made my first real attempt to leave after that. We were in her room. She'd set up candles, music playing low. She was wearing this oversized hoodie of mine. She looked happy. I said it gently. "Ria, I can't do this anymore." She blinked. "Do what?" "This, United States. You scare me sometimes." She tilted her head. "Because I love you too much? Number, because you twist things. Because I feel like I can't breathe." She didn't move. Didn't cry. Just stared at me. Then, after a long pause, she said, "I understand." I exhaled. "Really?" She nodded. "You should go." I left. Spent the night at a cheap lodge near the railway tracks. My hands were shaking the whole time. The next morning, my dorm room was broken into. Nothing stolen. Just trashed. My mattress sliced, my photos torn, and on the wall, written in black marker, "You left me alone." I didn't even report it. Who would believe me? I had no proof, no camera, no witnesses, just fear. Over the next few weeks, I moved into a PG 3 kilometers away. Switched jobs, changed SIM cards. But she found me, again and again. Once, I came home to find a dead pigeon on my doorstep, its wings tied with red thread. Another time, someone slipped a USB drive under my door. On it was a looped video of me sleeping, filmed through my window. I started losing weight, sleep, sanity. I reached out to Sagar again. He said I needed help. Real help. He and his cousin, a cop, helped me file a non-cognizable complaint, but there was little they could do without hard evidence. Then one day she disappeared. Just like that. No calls, no messages, no sightings, nothing. A month passed, then 2. I tried to relax. I started talking to a therapist in indoor over the phone. I began sleeping again. That's when I met Meenal. Meenal worked at a local pharmacy. Kind eyes, gentle voice. We started slow. I didn't tell her about Ria for a long time, but when I did, she didn't run. She stayed. A year later, we got engaged. I thought that chapter of my life was over. I was wrong. 3 nights before our wedding, Meenal got a message from an unknown number. Do you know who he used to belong to? Attached. A photo of me sleeping. Recent. Taken through the window of our apartment. Meenal showed it to me, shaking. Is this her? I nodded. We installed cameras, filed another police complaint. Nothing came of it. The night before the wedding, our bathroom window shattered from the outside. The cameras had been turned off. I don't know how. We still got married. Meenal said, she can't win. But that fear, it never left. It's been 4 years now. We have a son. He's 2. His name is Arav. Life is peaceful. But I still get chills when I see a red streak in someone's hair. When a silver Sony camera flashes in a crowd. When the power flickers just long enough to make me wonder. I never heard from Ria again. Last I heard, she moved abroad. Canada, maybe. Some art school. Sometimes I think about her. The girl who once held my face like I was fragile. Who once cried because I took too long to reply. And then I remember the message carved into my mattress. The pigeon. The way she made me doubt my own mind. If you're reading this and something feels off in your relationship, if your freedom feels like a favor instead of a right, run. Not later. Not after the next fight. Now love shouldn't feel like surveillance. It shouldn't make you flinch when the phone rings. It shouldn't feel like a haunted house with no doors. And to Ria, if you're out there, I hope you find peace, but never near me again. Story 8. I never thought my life was interesting enough to turn into a story. Nothing ever really happened to me. I wasn't the guy who got in fights, or chased dreams across oceans, or had tragic scars to show off at parties. I was just me. Nikhil Sharma, 24, software tester, living in the flat upstairs from my aunt's house in a sleepy suburb called Elmridge, just outside Wellington, New Zealand. I woke up at 6:30 every morning, fed the cat, jogged exactly 3 kilometers, and brewed the same shitty instant coffee. My parents had moved to Sydney, leaving me the upstairs flat in what used to be my grandfather's house. It creaked like an old ship when it rained, but I liked it. The kind of quiet you could fall apart in without anyone noticing. Everything changed the day I met Anya Roy. I wasn't looking for love, or even company. I was in one of those dry spells where you forget why people even date. Then came that weekend. It was a Saturday morning. I was fixing the lock on the garden shed when I heard someone call out, "Do you live here?" I turned. She was standing just outside the low wooden gate. Black jeans, olive green hoodie, oversized headphones around her neck. There was something offbeat about her, like she'd just walked out of a film that hadn't been released yet. A canvas bag slung across her shoulder, a sketchbook peeking out. "Yeah, upstairs flat. Why?" "I just moved in next door. I think I dropped a book over the fence," she said, smiling, sheepish. I checked. Sure enough, there was a slim black paperback on the grass by the fence post. No title. Just a faded symbol on the cover that looked hand-drawn. I picked it up, brushed the dirt off, and handed it to her. "Thanks," she said. "It's kind of personal." "No worries," I said. Then, without knowing why, I added, "I'm Nikhil." "Anya," she said. That was it. That one name changed everything. We started slow. Casual hellos turned into full-on conversations. She was an illustrator, freelanced for indie horror zines and obscure game studios. She wore mismatched socks, hated processed food, and swore that dreams meant more than reality ever could. Within a month, we were having tea every evening in the backyard. By the third month, she was staying over 3-4 nights a week. She was funny, not in the loud way, but in the way she'd just whisper something out of nowhere that made me laugh hours later. She smelled like cloves and sandalwood. Her laugh cracked like glass and made my chest feel warm in the middle of winter. But Anya had rules. Little ones at first. She didn't like when I stayed up past 2 a.m. She said the air changed at that hour. She always closed the bathroom door, even when it was empty. Said mirrors caught memories if left exposed. She didn't like it when I lit candles, or when I left windows open after dusk. And one day, she asked me never to go into the attic. The attic was part of the old house, directly above my bedroom. I'd never even been up there. The trapdoor was stiff, covered with an ugly floral rug. I didn't think much of it. "It's just storage, right?" I asked one night. She paused mid-sip of tea. "Sort of. It's not really a place for the living." I laughed. She didn't. "I'm serious," she said. "Promise me you won't go up there, ever, no matter what." The tone in her voice made something tighten in my gut. I nodded. I kept the promise. At first, I didn't realize I was changing. It's strange. You think you're the same person until someone else points out the cracks. My aunt, who still lived downstairs, pulled me aside one afternoon. "You're looking pale, Beta? Eating all right?" "Yeah, just tired," I lied. "You've lost weight, and you're sleeping strange hours. I hear footsteps sometimes at night. Just me walking around." She gave me a look. "You don't walk like that." I didn't know what she meant, but she wasn't wrong. I was tired all the time. Dreams felt heavier, longer. Sometimes I'd wake up with my fingernails full of dirt. A few times I swore I'd heard someone whispering just as I fell asleep. Low and fast, like a radio on the wrong frequency. But whenever I asked Anya about it, she just smiled and said, "Some things are better felt than understood." It was around that time I started noticing something else. A pattern. Anya always left before sunrise. No matter how cold, how tired, she'd slip out by 4:45 a.m. sharp. "Why?" I asked one night, half asleep. "Sunlight gives me migraines," she murmured against my neck. But that wasn't it. One morning, I woke up early by accident, around 4:30, and pretended to stay asleep. I watched her slip out of bed, fully dressed, like she hadn't even slept. She stood by the bedroom door, murmured something in a language I didn't recognize, and left. I waited 5 minutes. Then I followed. She wasn't on the stairs, not in the hallway, not by the gate. She hadn't left the house. I checked the bathroom, the kitchen. Nothing. Then I looked up at the ceiling. The attic door was open. I froze. Something about it felt wrong, like walking into your own kitchen and seeing everything rearranged backward. The rug was pushed aside. The metal latch dangled loose. My heartbeat kicked into my ears. I stood under it for maybe a minute, debating. Then, against every instinct I had, I climbed the ladder. The attic was dark, dusty. The kind of dark that absorbs flashlights instead of scattering them. But what made my skin crawl wasn't the darkness. It was the smell, like wet soil and old flowers, and something sweeter, like rot masked with incense. I moved slowly, light in hand. The space was larger than I thought, wooden beams above, insulation poking out in patches. And then I saw it, a circle painted in dark, uneven strokes on the wooden floorboards. Inside the circle lay something wrapped in linen cloth, unmoving. My breath hitched. I stepped forward. Something inside me begged me to turn back, but I didn't. I reached down, trembling, and peeled back one corner of the cloth. Hair, long, dark, just like Anya's, and skin, pale, waxen. A cold hand grabbed my wrist. I screamed. It was Anya, only she wasn't herself. Her eyes were wide, almost entirely black. Her skin glowed faintly in the flashlight's beam like moonlit stone. "What did you do?" she whispered. I I was looking for you. I thought you weren't supposed to see this." I backed away. "What is that? Who is that?" She didn't move. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "That's me." I felt the world tilt. "No, you're here. You're talking to me." I am what's left of her. A thread, a shadow. The real Anya died 2 years ago. On this floor, her body stayed. Her mind didn't. I stumbled back, hit a beam. Every night I return, before the sun touches her. Or else, she stopped. Her body began to flicker, literally flicker like bad TV static. You shouldn't have seen this. I turned and ran. I don't remember climbing down, only the blood on my hands from scraping my palms on the ladder. When I got back to my room, everything was silent. No sign of her. The next day, she was gone. I tried knocking next door. No answer. I asked the neighbors. They said the flat had been empty for over a year. The last tenant, a girl named Anya Roy, had died by suicide in the attic. Poison, they said, left no note. I tried going back up to the attic. The door wouldn't open. It was sealed, like it had never moved. That was 4 months ago. I moved out a week later. I don't jog anymore, don't drink tea. I moved to Hamilton, changed jobs. But I still dream of her. Sometimes she stands at the foot of my bed whispering. Sometimes I see her reflected in windows, never directly. And once, just once, I heard her voice when I turned on the attic fan in this new apartment. "You weren't supposed to look," she said. And I know someday she'll want me to come back, because something was left behind. And she's not done with me yet.